Blasphemy Final Witness 0. Lumiere doesn't sleep, which is good for him because he can be at clubs until closing, which helps his job immensely. He's been on this earth since before the Roman times, although he can't remember. He knows he was there. Originally, when he was first on this earth, he would try his hardest to look after his demeanor, but in the last few hundred years, he has become a demonic drug-dealing slob. He smokes at least 75 cigarettes a day and rolls them himself with Marlboro tobacco, which he insists on. And he figures since he can't die, why not? Lumiere is very skinny and bony. His eyes are only the white and his teeth are sharp as a shark's and maybe half as big. He wears an oversized, stained and ripped up collared shirt with tight black pants that are too short for his legs and expose his ankles. His skin is gray with a tinge of skin color, and it makes him look like he has never spent a day in the sun. Lumiere doesn't know if he is from heaven or hell or whether those places even exist, but he assumes he is from hell due to the look of his face, skin, and body. He thinks of himself as a demon from hell. Although he sometimes feels bad because he isn't a very good demon, sure, he might poison the community with most popular drugs, but in his thousands of years on this earth, he has probably only killed around 50 people, which for being alive for thousands of years is basically nothing. Lumiere has made many acquaintances and a few friends, but every one of them has lived their lifespan, and he simply lives on. And to his knowledge, this is the only time he sheds a tear. Although he has been ostracized for his looks before, he has never been banished from a city or anything like that. But people are definitely scared of him. It's only those with open hearts who have befriended him. Also, his is, for lack of better words, very awkward. One of the friends that he has made is a man called Cuthbert, who is practically the polar opposite of him. He is tall, strong, blonde, fashionable, with long, clean, flowing hair. Cuthbert helps Lumiere with all of his drug deals. His partner in crime, you could say. Lumiere is the supplier from the various manufacturers, and he supplies to Cuthbert, who supplies the dealers. Over Lumiere's many years on Earth, he has made many connections, which has caused his drug business to supply the world with every drug you would want. Mainly cannabis, MDMA, and methamphetamine. But the story of Lumiere meeting Cuthbert is an intense one, with a sense of an unspoken need for one another. Part 1, Introduction. Lumiere sat in a desolate and dank old bar with old, angry veterans, homeless people, and drug dealers. This bar was like a whole other fucked up and twisted ecosystem. The drug dealers dealing to those who can't afford their own clothes or a newspaper to sleep under, as they use every cent they have from panhandling on smack or crystal, then the dealers going to their suppliers to go on poisoning the world even more, and then straight back to Lumiere, who had all the connections. Lumiere ordered another scotch and sipped at it slowly. About 5 minutes after ordering his drink, an unexpected patron came into the bar. He was tall, well in shape, well-dressed, and had clean, long blonde hair. The man sat one seat away from Lumiere. After a minute or two of dead silence due to the abnormality of this man being here, the bar went back to normal, almost in sync with this. Lumiere got a text. It was one of his workers. A deal had gone sour, and he needed Lumiere's help. Lumiere grunted and kept sipping at his scotch. The blonde man got up and stood behind Lumiere. "Are you going to take care of that?" he asked in a smooth tone. "Do I know you?" said Lumiere, obviously annoyed. The man looked at him and smiled. "You'd better look after it, or you're going to lose your man." The man looked for a reaction from Lumiere. "Look after yourself," he said, and patted Lumiere on the back. He then walked out the bar. Did he just fucking pat me on the back? Lumiere thought to himself. Well, I'd better look after this. Lumiere downed his scotch and walked out the bar. As Lumiere walked down these grim ghetto slums, with a large .45 concealed under his pants, he knew that he really could not be bothered with this, but he continued anyway. He made it to the hostage scene. His man was being held by the neck with a gun to his head. "Are you gonna pay up?" said the goon. "Paul, please help me," said Lumiere's man in reference to Lumiere. Because he knew never to use his real name, Lumiere stayed calm. "You know I don't owe you any debt." The other goon then panicked and emptied out his ammo cartridge into Lumiere's head. It had no effect, The bullet simply seeped into Lumiere's skin, and his face was no different because of it. Lumiere was angry now. He shot the man who shot him with a perfect bullseye, splattering the man's brains across the brick wall. The man's body fell to the ground. "Holy shit!" screamed the goon. Lumiere stayed calm. "The same will happen to you if you don't stop this fucking charade." The goon was obviously terrified of Lumiere. All right. I'll go." He then sprinted out of the alleyway. Lumiere looked at his guy. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm fine, though." Lumiere cut him off. "Good. Go home." His man nodded and walked away. Lumiere sighed and walked home. Lumiere got home to his quaint apartment. It was well-designed, modern, and fashionable, all that he felt he wasn't. He rolled himself a cigarette and then sat on his leather couch. He then dragged at his dart intently. Once he had smoked his cigarette, he went into his study and grabbed a hunting knife. He then proceeded to repeatedly stab himself in the stomach, screaming, "Fuck, fuck!" The knife did nothing. He put on his desk and began to try and stop his shaky breathing. Lumiere got up and went to his bed, which was pointless due to that fact he couldn't sleep, but it made him feel human. At around 4 in the morning, Lumiere started hearing noises from his kitchen. He got up from his bed and grabbed another of his many gifts from his bedside table. It was silenced in order to not wake the neighbors. He cautiously walked from his bedroom to the kitchen, hugging the wall as he did. He heard slow footsteps from behind him and made out a figure in the shadows. He proceeded to shoot a single shot at what he thought was the head. It was a shoulder. The figure ran toward him, but Lumiere couldn't hear gunshots or see a pistol. What he could see were handcuffs and chains. Lumiere could see the man now and got a clean headshot. He was even more pissed now because he had stained his walls and carpet. Lumiere slowly walked into the kitchen and continued hugging the wall. He slowly opened the door and turned on the light. He scanned the room, and after about 15 seconds, he could make out 4 figures hiding in the shadows. He didn't hesitate to shoot the man closest to him, splattering blood onto his cooktop. 2 more ran towards him. Lumiere put out a clean shot on one of them, but before he could reload, he got tackled and brought to the ground. The man held him down. He was large and strong, and Lumiere couldn't move. 2 more men came running from the hallway and proceeded to chain Lumiere up to the point where he was immobilized. These men were dressed in full black stealth wear and had balaclavas on. Therefore, Lumiere couldn't know who they were, but he had an idea. When Lumiere's blindfold was taken off by a man who walked away immediately, he was in what looked like a prison cell or an interrogation room, although he was chained up on both arms, legs, and his neck. Lumiere assessed the situation. He tried to file away the chains with his sharp fingers, but that failed. It was obviously something stronger than steel. It seemed as if his captors knew who he was and what he could do quite well. A few hours passed when he saw the door open. "Well, seems we've finally caught Paul," said a thug in a very smug tone. The thug walked up closer to Lumiere and started terrorizing him. "Unstoppable! Well, what are you now?" Lumiere could tell this person wasn't the boss. He was too stupid and brash. The thug walked even closer to Lumiere. "So, what are you now?" The thug then stepped back and went to punch Lumiere in the face, but as the fist made contact, Lumiere opened his mouth and with his razor-sharp teeth bit off half of the thug's hand. The thug screamed and recoiled to the ground. "Fuck you!" shouted Lumiere after he spat out the chunk of hand. Blood spouted out of the thug's stump with a thumb still attached. "You're gonna pass out if you don't stop the blood flow. You'd better leave," said Lumiere in a smug and calm tone. The thug walked out, clutching his hand and whimpering. About 10 minutes later, a tall, skinny, and pale man with black slicked-back hair walked into the room. "A good show you've put on," he said. "You have probably figured out why we're keeping you here." He looked at Lumiere with somewhat understanding eyes. Lumiere grunted. The man went on. "The truth is, your industry is our biggest competitor, and since it seems impossible to kill you, we had no other choice." Paul. There was a long silence. Not a word was spoken for at least 2 minutes. "I'd love to know what you are. A demon? An angel? An alien?" "Get fucked," said Lumiere. Even he himself didn't know how to answer this question. The man chuckled. "We'll talk again soon." A few days passed with nothing happening and a different guard standing at the door every 24 hours, all of them wearing different outfits. But this day it was different. When the guards swapped shifts, the guard changing in put a quick shot to the heart with a silenced pistol to the other guard. He walked into the room and it was the same man who patted him on the back of the bar. "Are you all right, Paul?" Lumiere was shocked. "How did you know where I was?" Well, the first question is simple. You have the best drug industry in this whole country. I want to be a part of it. And with all the men I've killed in these headquarters, I've severely fractured one of your competitors. In answer to your second question, didn't it seem a little strange that a man you've never met patted you on the back? It's simple. A tracking chip. Lumiere was shocked. "Well, you're committed," he said in shock and bewilderment. There was a small silence and the man had a small laugh. "My name is Cuthbert. I won't tell you my last name yet. It was a stretch to tell you my first." Lumiere nodded and understood fully. "Let's get you out of these chains," said Cuthbert in a strangely cheerful tone. He walked towards the dead guard and obtained the keys. Cuthbert walked over to Lumiere shaking the keys, and in sync with unlocking the shackles said, "Open sesame." Lumiere fell to the ground and it took a few seconds before Cuthbert helped him up. Cuthbert then said, once Lumiere had his faculties back, "I'm looking forward to some good business." Part 2. First Heist. Lumiere sat on a park bench. The crisp, cold air signaled the beginning of autumn. He had nearly finished his cigarette, and every bit of ash was still attached to the butt. He threw it on the ground, and as he went to roll another, he received the text he'd been waiting for. "Come to Frankie's Cafe. I have a business venture for us." Lumiere nodded to himself and finished rolling his second cigarette. He then got up and sparked it and strolled down the concrete with an inkling of a smile on his face. Lumiere was starting to feel happy for the first time in a long time because he sensed the beginning of a friendship. Lumiere arrived at Frankie's Cafe. He threw his dart on the ground and butted it with his manky Converse. He walked into the cafe and ordered a long black double shot with no sugar. Lumiere looked around and saw Cuthbert sitting at the table furthest into the corner. Cuthbert nodded at Lumiere to signal to come and sit. Lumiere sat down. "Hi, so how are you?" said Cuthbert, obviously a little forced. There was a short and dead silence. Lumiere looked Cuthbert in the eye. "So what's this business venture?" Cuthbert scanned the room to make sure no one was watching them. He reached into his pocket and put a small stick of butt of the table. "What the fuck?" said Lumiere. "Are you fucking thick bringing drugs out in a cafe?" "Relax," said Cuthbert. "I know everyone that works here. They know what I do. And there's hardly any customers here anyway. No one's gonna notice a little bud on the table." "So what are you showing me?" said Lumiere with curiosity. "This is the most potent shit in the whole country, dubbed red beer. Look at it. The tinges of red are totally unique to this strain." Lumiere inspected it and sniffed it. "It's definitely nice, but so what? There's only one gang that sells this. Not even a gang, really just a bunch of hippies who live in a commune in the city. But where they grow this shit is a close guarded secret, known only to the higher-ups in their syndicate." "And me." Cuthbert grinned. Lumiere went to say something, but before he could, his coffee was brought to him. "Here you are," said the waitress with a smile. Lumiere took a large sip and paused. "But how? I don't get it," he said, bewildered. "You'd be surprised, Paul. I have a lot of friends, just like you, but some of mine are hippies, not very faithful ones. But nevertheless." "All right, so what's your plan?" said Lumiere while taking quick small sips of his coffee. "We take over the grow by whatever means necessary. We can't underestimate these hippies. I wouldn't be surprised if every worker is packing. If I had this strain, I would do anything to protect it. Once we've got it to ourselves, we get our own workers to look after the plantation. And we have the strongest chuff in the country, all in our distribution, and all the money goes to us." "All right, sounds good." There was a third pause and looked at the ground and looked up at Cuthbert. "I have to ask, why are you doing this? Why this industry? It doesn't seem to suit you." Lumiere looked directly at Cuthbert. There was yet another pause. "That story is for another time. Let's sort this shit out first." Cuthbert looked at Lumiere as if to say, "Okay?" Lumiere nodded. He then brought up his mug. "To our first job together." Cuthbert recited the same. They clinked their cups, and the business was sorted. A few days later, Lumiere felt a sense of déjà vu once again. He was waiting impatiently for a text from Cuthbert in the same park, smoking the same brand of cigarette. After a few hours of dazed staring at the rusty playground, Lumiere got the text. It read, "Meet me at the gas station just before the turnoff to the Southern Highway in 2 hours." Lumiere walked to the gas station, as it wasn't far, and waited an hour and a half. Eventually, Cuthbert pulled into the gas station, driving what looked like a $700 car. Lumiere was confused. Why would a hopeful drug empire boss drive a shitty Pulsar? Cuthbert opened the passenger door. "Hey buddy, get in," he said in an oddly cheerful tone. Lumiere stepped into the car and looked around, almost feeling a little insulted that he had to sit in this thing. "Cuthbert," he said. "Yeah?" replied Cuthbert. "If you're an aspiring drug lord, why do you drive a rusty Pulsar?" "To remain inconspicuous," he said with a tone that suggested he knew Lumiere would ask this. Lumiere nodded. "Plus it's got character, you know?" said Cuthbert, seeming affectionate to his shitty car. "All right, makes sense, I suppose," said Lumiere. The two began to drive down the highway and quickly made their way out of the city. Lumiere stared at the trees and bushes speeding past the car window at 110 kilometers an hour. He was surprising himself with how much he enjoyed it, but this quickly turned to boredom after the first hour of driving. "How far is this place?" asked Lumiere, a little confused. "Far," said Cuthbert bluntly. That was all that was said for another 2 hours until they turned into a dirt road, and Lumiere asked cautiously, "Are you sure you know where we're going?" "Don't worry," said Cuthbert. "I've been scouting this place. I know exactly where it is." He paused. "I just needed someone immortal to come along with me," he said with a slight chuckle. After another hour of driving this dirt road in the hot sun, Cuthbert stopped the car. "We'll have to walk from here if we want to remain undetected," he said as he put on a sun hat. "It's a good day. You could use a tan," he said with a definite chortle. Lumiere said nothing and stepped out of the car and concealed his gun. Cuthbert had parked the car at the bottom of a hill to remain undetected. Once they reached the top, it revealed a huge building, which looked as though it used to be an industrial barn house, but it had been severely renovated to support a large plantation. Lumiere looked around and saw no trace of people guarding the plantation. "Where are the guards?" Lumiere asked in confusion. "That's the thing," said Cuthbert. "I've scouted this place for 2 separate nights and days, and nothing. I'm assuming they're all inside. I mean, we can't rule out that they're too stupid or stoned to think of having guards outside. Maybe, but that's pretty fucking stupid." Lumiere and Cuthbert walked cautiously towards the grow. They were 200 or so meters from the building, and the anticipation for conflict was in the air. They made it to the building, and there was no sign anyone noticed them. The renovations made this building look strange. There were no windows apart from skylights on the roof, and only one steel door over 100 meters of wooden wall. They two walked to the steel door and looked at each other. "What now?" asked Lumiere. Cuthbert paused and said in a carefree tone, He then shrugged and knocked 3 times on the steel door, loudly. "What the fuck? What the fuck?" said Lumiere in a shouted whisper. There was a pause until they heard slow footsteps. The door was opened slowly. Lumiere's anxiety peaked. Once the door opened, it revealed a baked hippie with dreadlocks to his knees, holding an Uzi. "What do you want?" The hippie was cut off by 2 of Cuthbert's bullets flying through his skull, splattering brains and skull over the scaffolding rail and onto the ganja plants. As soon as this happened, voices started shouting, "What the fuck was that?" And multiple running footsteps running towards the steel door. Lumiere shouted to Cuthbert, "For fuck's sake, Cuthbert, I didn't want to murder anyone!" Cuthbert stared at Lumiere with a confused expression for a full 10 seconds, seemingly not having a care in the world that at least 9 people were on the way to try and kill him. Cuthbert rolled his eyes and said, "Fucking pussy!" and grabbed Lumiere's gun. The hippies started abrasively spraying their bullets in Cuthbert's direction. They had obviously never used their guns before. Cuthbert hid behind the door for a moment until he heard the closest hippie reloading. He then snuck from the door and fired 1 shot into the hippie's head. The hippie recoiled back and fell on the scaffold. Cuthbert then looked up and saw 3 more hippies standing on a scaffold much higher than the others, linked to what looked like a separate room at the top hand corner of the room. The hippies kept firing, with not a single bullet hitting Cuthbert due to their shitty aim. Cuthbert then fired 4 bullets at the chains attached to the roof, holding the scaffold up. The scaffold then fell at least what would be 4 stories, and the hippies fell to their death. There were 4 more hippies on the lower scaffold. They ran toward Cuthbert in a stampede, firing their machine guns and Uzis. Cuthbert then proceeded to pick them off one by one, not missing a single headshot. The last hippie running towards Cuthbert was too close for comfort. So Cuthbert leaped to the side, and as he was in the air, got 2 bullets fired into his shoulder. He then shouted, "Fuck!" and fell to the ground. But before the hippie could make another shot, Cuthbert shouted, "Die, you dirty cunt!" and practically disintegrated the hippie's head by emptying both his gun's clips into the hippie's temple. Lumiere then calmly walked into the room and looked at all the blood, debris, and dead bodies. "Jesus, Cuthbert," he said in a shocked but impressed tone. "You're a good shot. Are you all right?" Cuthbert exhaled slowly and said, "Yeah, I'll be fine. There's bandages in the car." "Good," said Lumiere. "Well, we'd better get our men in here ASAP." Immediately after he said this, they heard a voice coming from the room at the top hand corner of the room. "Ha ha! What's this?" It was a woman in her early 60s with a short blonde bob cut. She was wearing tan cargo pants and an oversized white shirt. She then walked down the stairs, slowly holding in her hands the ironic combination of a large spliff and a cup of green tea. "It looks like you've killed my coworkers." "Well, I never liked them anyway. Bunch of fucking yuppies." Lumiere was a little taken aback. Yes, we've claimed this plantation. You can leave or die," he said, almost stammering. This woman had a powerful presence. "Well, sure." She said, "Business is business. But tell me, do you have any fucking idea how to maintain these plants? Redbeard is a very, very particular strain. It's taken me 20 years to perfect it, and I really doubt you can figure out the recipe." Lumiere looked down at the ground and stammered, "Fuck." In a shouting whisper, "Well, why don't you work for us?" he said in the tone of a businessman. "What the fuck?" shouted Cuthbert, still lying on the ground. The old woman smiled. "You've got a deal." She laughed to herself. "I was really starting to hate those people. Try-hard dickheads, in my opinion. I'm glad they're gone. Anyway, your friend looks pretty hurt. Bring him up to my office. I'll fix him up." Lumiere was shocked at how well their first heist had gone. He helped Cuthbert up, and as they walked up the scaffold stairs, he said, "We're in business." Cuthbert laughed and said, "Fuck yeah." He then proceeded to cough up a little blood. They made it up to the office, and the old woman tended Cuthbert's wounds. "My name's Wendy," she gave a smile, and Lumiere proceeded with, "Lumiere." Cuthbert went to say his name, but Wendy was taking the bullet out of his shoulder, so it came out as, "Fuck me, bloody!" He then took a few quick breaths and stammered, "My name's Cuthbert." Wendy smiled and said, "Nice to meet you both." After Cuthbert was bandaged, Wendy began to roll a massive spliff, and once she put it up in the air, sparked it, and said, "To good business." Part 3. Kimmy. Want me to get him? Kimmy Ruger was an unassuming local club party drug trader before he ever found the app. He had long, shaggy, naturally deep, bright red hair and wore bulky racing jackets, high-end sweatpants, and Nike TNs. Most days. One day, he was browsing the dark web for hours, struggling to sift through links to find what he was searching for. He had heard that mephedrone was actually quite easy to make, and it had practically no market in his country. Australia, he'd have a monopoly. Kimmy was searching for the 2 precursor ingredients that seemed practically impossible to buy on the regular net in Australia. He kept sifting through different links, referencing the notepad he had written extensive link URLs he'd found in an attempt to buy the precursors. Kimmy was poor. He had always been poor. He shoplifted his groceries, and most of his clothes and all his spare funds came from his less than lucrative dealing gig he had helping out his mate Marcus at local club, Herd amongst others. Kimmy left one link falling down a rabbit hole of snuff videos and Pav murder videos that appeared to be being filmed as a part of a collective. One man being shot dead in a supermarket by a man in a motorcycle helmet. The next, a man getting killed as he got into his car from someone hiding in the back seat, and so on. Fucking Jesus! Kimmy muttered to himself. It started to feel like no matter what link he clicked, it was leading him to some sort of snuff content. Kimmy excruciatingly entered a long link letter by letter, number by number, and by accident he had entered one letter wrong and exclaimed, "Fuck's sake, cunt!" Before realizing the URL he had put in changed when he hit the enter key and was loading a page with poorly drawn images of assassin dress type looking manga sort of characters, alongside strange monsters made of multiple crudely drawn black faces and flesh stretched across pieces of bone. Ah, cool, what is this? Kimmy scrolled down. It appeared to be a secret underground dark web MMORPG, set up something like old Adventure Quest or Dragon Fable, but instead with assassins and surreal monsters. The title read, Didi Moncler, Online. Import to your phone now, with a download link. Kimmy plugged his phone into the computer and downloaded it. The minute he dragged the folder into his phone and the file was uploaded, Kimmy's computer screen malfunctioned and began spewing iridescent TV static like it was connected to an antenna taking on some sort of frequency. What the fuck? Muttered Kimmy to himself and checked his phone for the app. There it was, the letters DMG and a black icon for Didi Moncler game. Kimmy blew raspberries lamenting his computer screen and opened the app. It was strangely nostalgic. He had loved Adventure Quest as a kid, and this game was clearly designed alongside it with different art styles and more gory and adult. Kimmy was into it. So for the next few weeks, Kimmy would open this random game in his phone, intermittently, slowly gaining levels on the train, bus, or when he was awkwardly holding his phone. It all felt totally harmless until he reached level 13 over the course of a couple weeks, wherein his phone and the app started glitching. Kimmy was at his mate Marcus's house. He was playing the Didi Moncler online game while Marcus weighed and filled up bags for their night out. "What you playing?" asked Marcus. "Oh, just some MMO bullshit I found," replied Kimmy, focusing on winning his quest so he could reach level 13 after weeks of playing it sporadically. Kimmy finished the quest and leveled up, and after he did, he wandered around the main area where players traded items. But it was different. All the players who were online before has disappeared. It was eerily empty. Even the shop fronts, which were all empty except for one, the miscellaneous items store, where Kimmy made his red-haired avatar approach. Ready for the next vibe. The regular shopkeep wasn't there, and the shopkeep was only selling one thing, baseball cards. They had never sold baseball cards before. Out of curiosity, Kimmy bought one and opened it in the menu. And the moment he did, his phone went black and went into a factory mode, appearing to code itself. "Oh, fuck! For fuck's sake, I fucked my phone!" exclaimed Kimmy. "What happened?" asked Marcus, still concentrating on weighing individual bags of coke, MD, and ketamine. "I got this app off the dark web, fucking. Must have been an elaborate scam, they just locked my phone." "Fuck!" Kimmy yelled. "Might just be tripping out because of random code," muttered Marcus, looking at Kimmy's phone in its boot setup, coding itself. "Just leave it for Abbott. Doesn't look like you actually got hacked. Your phone's just tripping. Come on, let's go." Marcus said he had finished weighing up. "Yeah, alright, bro, I hope so," replied Kimmy. Each of them took handfuls of individual bags and made their way to Club Herd. On the way to the club, Kimmy's phone vibrated back to life in his pocket, and Kimmy took it out exclaiming, "Thank God." When he saw his phone had gone back to normal, he went to delete the Didi Moncler app to see the icon had changed to a new logo, more refined and slick. Out of curiosity, Kimmy opened it in the line inside to Club Urge. He was lost in his phone. Everything else fell out of his view at that moment. His phone opened a sleek AI assistant type looking app, which started talking to him in white text on a black background. "Welcome, Kimmy," it said. Kimmy was unnerved because he had never given it his real name when he had made his profile. Kimmy was coming up to the front in the line. His phone read, "Will you pick justice? Power? Mercy?" Each option was outlined in a different color. Red for power, yellow for mercy, and blue for justice. Kimmy didn't give it much thought and picked power as it went with his red hair. And before he could go further, he was at the front of the line. Kimmy postponed his curiosity, put his phone in his pocket, paid the entry fee, and entered the club following Marcus. After selling a few bags, Kimmy went back out for a smoke. The app was still open. A contract appeared. You are 5 meters away from your first target. The name Wanderer appeared. Underneath, the details. Human trafficking charges. Kimmy's heart pounded. He checked the card he had bought earlier. It showed Wanderer's face. And then, across the smokers area, there he was. A tall, broad-shouldered man, 6 to 5 inch, draped in flowing robes, 2 women at his sides. They clung to him with an almost devoted look, as if they belonged to him. Wanderer noticed Kimmy's gaze and smirked knowingly. You're welcome to join us, he said smoothly, voice thick with intoxication. He told Kimmy about an induction camp happening outside the city. Said he should come, see what they were about. Kimmy nodded along, but his resolve was already set. The cunt was dead. Kimmy sat in on the chanting, kept his eyes locked on Wanderer. The cult didn't feel real. They chanted in low, droning voices, and the air shimmered, just slightly, like something was watching. When Wanderer finally took a break, he walked alone into a massive tent. Kimmy followed, silent, close. Inside, Wanderer turned, about to say something. Kimmy wrapped his arm around his throat and wrenched him back. Ready for the next 5? Wanderer struggled, hard. He was stronger, bigger, but Kimmy had position. Minutes passed. The breathing slowed. His body went limp. His eyes rolled back. Kimmy let go. He ran out the back of the tent, walked fast to his bike, and rode home. His hands shook on the handlebars. The adrenaline was unreal. Then, a vibration in his pocket. He pulled out his phone. A notification. Congratulations on your first contract, Kimmy. You have been awarded $4,890. His pulse pounded. The cold sweat started easing. He looked at his phone. What? Then he smirked. Hey! Nice. Part 4, Cuthbert. It had been a few weeks since their first heist, and Lumiere and Cuthbert's friendship was taking shape, though Cuthbert still didn't know Lumiere's real name. Want me to continue with the next 5? Lumiere rolled a cigarette in his apartment and stepped outside, the night air sharp as he lit up. Cuthbert's place was only a few blocks away, a small, run-down red brick house sandwiched awkwardly between towering apartment buildings. The house looked like it belonged in another decade. Its green roof was peeling, and the front door seems warped, like it had been kicked a few too many times. Lumiere knocked, exhaling a stream of smoke as the door creaked open. Cuthbert stood there, shirt wrinkled, his hair sticking up like he'd just rolled out of bed. Hey, man, he said, his voice lazy. What's up? Not much. You look wrecked. Are you fucked? Lumiere asked. Cuthbert laughed, leaning against the doorframe. Yeah, a little bit. Can I come in? Yeah, come in, Cuthbert said, stepping aside. Inside, the place was a mess. Clothes, half-empty bottles, and ashtrays scattered on every surface. The air smelled stale, but Lumiere didn't comment. He followed Cuthbert to the kitchen, where they sat at a battered table. So, Cuthbert said, lighting a cigarette, what brings you here? Lumiere hesitated, then leaned back in his chair. A while ago, I asked why you do this, why you're so good at it, and why you saved me. You said you'd tell me another time. I figured this might be it. Cuthbert's face hardened for a moment before he nodded. All right, he said. Guess you deserve to know. I was 6 when my mom died of breast cancer, Cuthbert began, his voice calm like he was reading from a script. She worked up until the end. She had to. Both my parents were in the Secret Service. My dad died 4 years later on a mission. I don't know the details, but apparently it was something otherworldly. That's what they told me, anyway. Lumiere stayed silent, letting him continue. When my dad died, the agency took me in. I lived at their headquarters for about a year before they decided I needed a proper guardian. That's when Malachi came in. At first, he seemed great, kind, patient, the perfect guy to take care of a kid. But the minute we got to his house, he changed. He locked me in a tiny room, beat me for stepping out of line, or for no reason at all. Cuthbert lifted his shirt, revealing a web of scars and old bruises. This is what 6 years with Malachi looks like. Lumiere stared but said nothing. I fought back when I could, Cuthbert continued. By the time I was 15, I'd learned how to throw a punch. Sometimes I'd get the better of him, break his nose or knock him down. But it only made him angrier. There were times he'd chain me up for days. Real sadistic shit. Cuthbert paused to light another cigarette, his hands steady despite the words. I found out why he hated me during one of our fights, he said, exhaling smoke. He told me my mom had an affair, and my dad wasn't my real father. He said I was the product of a mistake, and I'd spend my life paying for it. Lumiere frowned. Do you believe him? Cuthbert shrugged. I don't know. Doesn't matter. What matters is, I got out. On my 17th birthday, I walked out that door and never came back. He went on to explain how he'd joined the Secret Service, quickly rising through the ranks, but his real mission had always been to kill Malachi. I left the agency when I realized they'd never let me settle that score, Cuthbert said. After that, I started freelancing. Figured if I caused enough chaos, Malachi would notice. That's when I heard about you. Me? Lumiere asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, Cuthbert said with a grin. The immortal Paul. I tracked you down, planted that chip to figure out where you lived. Saving you that night? That was just luck. But I knew I wanted you as a partner. You've got a moral compass, even in this business. That's rare. And you know, the whole unkillable thing doesn't hurt. Why tell me all this now? Lumiere asked after a moment. Cuthbert said simply, partners shouldn't keep secrets, right? Lumiere smirked. In that case, I guess I should tell you my real name. Cuthbert leaned forward, grinning. Oh yeah, let's hear it. It's Lumiere, he said, a little reluctantly. I don't remember how I got it or who gave it to me, but it's mine. Cuthbert nodded. Lumiere, huh? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Lumiere said with a rare smile. They spent the rest of the night drinking, smoking, and playing video games, something Lumiere had never done before. By the time he left, it was past midnight. Snow had started falling, thin flakes settling on the empty streets. Lumiere lit another cigarette, watching the smoke curl up into the cold air. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't entirely alone. The next 5 paragraphs, verbatim. Lumiere was beginning to get a headache for the first time in a very long time. He was trying to take paracetamol, but it wasn't working, so he decided to go against his better judgment and smoke some of the pot that he and Cuthbert had previously stolen off the hippies. He did not know what he was in for. Lumiere was not just stoned, but baked or munted. He figured he was some sort of ancient god, and he found it amazing that this pot was so strong that it even got him high. Lumiere put down the J he was smoking and began to pack a huge, thumb-packed diamond cone. He ripped the whole thing in one go, and as he exhaled, lost his balance and smashed his head into his glass coffee table, shattering it immediately. Fucking! Ha! For fuck's sake! Exclaimed Lumiere. He had huge shards of glass sticking into his head. He calmly pulled them all out slowly. There was no blood on his skin. It merely reconnected immediately as he pulled each shard of glass out in front of the mirror. Huh. Lumiere said to himself, that shit is strong, as he left his apartment. Lumiere was walking down the street towards Cuthbert's house. Cuthbert had organized a night out to celebrate the win against the hippies. Lumiere hadn't gone out for fun in a while. His life was pretty much solely devoted to drug dealing and remaining a kingpin, so he was excited, stoned, and excited. Lumiere got to Cuthbert's house. Hey, Mon, said Cuthbert. Come in. Cheers, bud, said Lumiere. So you said we're going out, right? Yup, exclaimed Cuthbert. Where to? Club Perguri. I need to check up on Marcus, one of our workers. Cuthbert's phone started ringing. In fact, Cuthbert looked at his phone. That's him now. Cuthbert picked up the phone. Marcus! My boy, how are ya? There was a whimpering sound on the other end of the telephone. I don't know how to yell you this, Cuthbert, but the MD, it's fucking, well, it's, yes? What? It's dry as a nun's pussy, Cuthbert. I'm sorry. Every supplier just cut out at the last minute. I got nothing to sell for you. Cuthbert sighed a heavy sigh. Don't worry, Marcus. It'll be all right, he said calmly as he hung up the phone. Well, the MD situation is fucked. You like MD? Asked Cuthbert. I like everything, said Lumiere, in moderation. Well, if you want MD tonight, we're gonna have to hunt for it. I don't really care, to be honest, said Lumiere, trailing off. That Wendy bitch, I bet she'd know. Cuthbert then proceeded to call Wendy. Lumiere planted a seat in Cuthbert's living room, rolled a cigarette, and sparked it. Well, fucking call her then, said Lumiere, getting more nervous about the ramifications on his business the MDMA shortage could have. Cuthbert got out his phone and called Wendy asking for help. Hey, Wendy, me and Lumiere, we need your help, he said into the phone meekly. Why the fuck would I help you cunts? She shouted loud enough for Lumiere to hear it through the speaker. For fuck's sake! Scoffed Lumiere, dragging at his cigarette. Hey, I thought we were cool. Cuthbert, listen, we need MDMA out, contact has gone bust, and it's a big night for my boys tonight. Good business, remember? Can you help us out? Wendy groaned heavily over the phone, sounding like she was off her guts. Cuthbert covered the microphone with his hand. Sounds like she's off her head, he muttered to Lumiere. Lumiere chuckled at the thought. Listen, mate, I might happen to have a source for you, but you're gonna have to do something for me. Don't think you can fuck up my operation, and I'm just gonna start doing you fucking favors. Hear me? She barked. Alright. What do you need anything I can do? I'm here for you, Darl. Tell me, replied Cuthbert in a sincere tone. Well, Cuthbert, I'll tell you what. I need a place to hide out. I can't stay in this grow house much longer. The boss found out about the workers you cunts fucking murdered, and he saw me help you guys out on the CCTV and thinks I was in on your little heist now. I need to leave here within the week. Give me an effective hideout, and I'll contact old mate, yeah? It needs to be somewhere big enough that I can bring my botany equipment. I'm not letting that fuckhead steal my recipe. Cuthbert thought about the offer for a second and concluded thinking, well, my house is tiny. I probably won't have room. Cuthbert replied and turned to Lumiere. Lumiere, if you want the MD, you'll need to give Wendy a place to stay at the end of the week, yay? Lumiere thought about it for a moment, and quickly decided he trusted Wendy and wanted to know her better and accepted, yay, that should be fine, he responded casually. Cuthbert was surprised by Lumiere's laid-back response. Really? Okay, yeah. Wendy, you can stay with Lumiere. He says it's fine. Now please tell me about this contact. I have people relying on me. Oh, lovely, replied Wendy, delighted. All right, I know a couple of freelance cooks. Their operation is just outside the city. You should be able to get there quick where you are. Love. Wendy proceeded to give Cuthbert an address in the sketchiest suburb in the city on the outskirts of town and gave him their number. They're close friends of mine. Me and the older bloke grew up together. I took botany and he took chemistry. His name's Davo, and the young one is Cranford. Try not to aggregate that one. I'll give you his number. Tell him Wildcat told you to call. Fuck yay, sorted, said Cuthbert as he hung up the phone and began to dial the number Wendy had given him. It dialed and rang to the last dial until a somewhat feeble-sounding voice answered. Hello? Who is this? What do you want? Cranford, who's on the phone? Fuck, man, how would I know? Said a voice Cuthbert overheard on the phone exasperatedly. Cuthbert quickly interjected. Listen, Davo, mate, this is Cuthbert. Wildcat gave me your number. Said you could help with some wholesale molly. Yay, all good. Cuthbert? What kind of fucking name is that? The man muttered, the old man. Well, if Wendy's got trust in you. Cuthbert? Of course, replied Cuthbert. All right then. Yes, good. And how do you know Wendy, may I ask? Oh, not important. Cuthbert paused. You know, business, he stated. Right, said Davo somewhat suspiciously. Oi, this cunt suz. Cuthbert heard Cranford again in the background again and winced. Relax, Cranford. Any friend of Wildcat's is sure to be fine, Davo stated to Cranford. All right then. Well, you're in luck, mate. We have enough surplus of pure grade brown MDMA to run the city for the foreseeable future, it would seem. Perfect, exclaimed Cuthbert. Lumiere had grown disinterested and was intently chain-smoking in the corner. Davo gave Cuthbert directions to the RV with directions Cuthbert had to write down, as well as coordinates he could put into his phone. Cuthbert entered the coordinates, and it was further than he thought, but still doable by today. Paul, come on, said Cuthbert in a rushed tone, grabbing his car keys. We need this done today, or noon's getting paid. Okay, replied Lumiere, ambivalent, and looked at the coordinates. Oh, damn, we're going there? A flash of memory came to his mind, but he didn't mention it. Ha-ha, yeah, ye cool, said Lumiere, weirdly chuffed. Yeah, right. Lego, stated Cuthbert. They drove past the outer suburbs into the bush, heading towards the coordinates, and went down a dirt road. There were large craters in the grass and ground around the road. Yeah, that's right, fucking meteor shower. I was here. A long time ago, muttered Lumiere somewhat to himself in the car. That'd be a long time, mate, replied Cuthbert. I mean, Jesus, how old are you, dude? Asked Cuthbert, dumbfounded. I have no idea, mate. Can't remember, replied Lumiere bluntly, but I think I wasn't ever a kid either. Like, I don't think I grew up. I was just put here, I think. I don't know, mate, gut feeling, said Lumiere, shrugging it off. You just don't remember? For fuck's sake, cunt, muttered Cuthbert. It's gonna be good having Wendy in my apartment. I need someone to remember things for me, laughed Lumiere. Right. I mean, if she's happy to be like your secretary, but yes. Nah, for sure. Oh, look, this looks right. Not long after being on the dirt road, they arrived at a huge luxury RV parked off the road. Cuthbert parked the car, and as they were about to get out, a very large, muscular, burly man in a black singlet, blue jeans, and combat boots, with short black hair, came out of the RV holding a sawed-off shotgun. Oh, fuck, said Cuthbert. Don't worry, bud, said Lumiere, and calmly got out of the car, walking towards the man. He was shaking with rage and looked pale and gaunt, clearly hadn't slept in days. Lumiere walked closer to the man. Hey, mate, I'm Paul. We're here for the MD, yeah? He said, sounding like he was talking to a new dog. The man shrieked. Jesus Christ! Your fucking eyes! What the fuck are you? Lumiere opened his mouth to talk, and the man interjected. And your fucking teeth, cunt! Fuck this, I knew you cunts were sus. The man aimed the sawed-off point blanc at Lumiere and fired 2 shells into Lumiere's chest. Lumiere flew back a few meters and landed on his back, all the parts of shell having ripped his clothes and now slowly seeping into his skin. Lumiere sighed heavily and got up, dusting himself off. The man started shrieking, What the fuck? Fucking die! He screamed as he loaded 2 more shells into his shotgun. Cuthbert was watching from the car in awe. Relax! You dumb fucking cunt! Fucking hell, you ruined my clothes! He screamed at the man with an unsettlingly deep tone. The man was twitching and sniffing, rubbing his face. Can't trust ya. You're fucking evil. You're fucking jacks. You're the feds, I know it. He muttered now, somewhat in terror. Relax, mate. It's Cranford, right? Said Lumiere, as he walked towards Cranford and lightly took the shotgun. Now where's Davo? That's who we're here to see, right? He said in a cool, comforting tone. Yeah? Yeena. Yeah, he's just passed out inside. Cunt's pretty deaf, you know? Cranford laughed and stammered. You lead the way, prompted Lumiere and signaled to Cuthbert to come out of the car. Cuthbert slowly opened the car door and walked to the two as they walked toward the RV. They got in the RV, and sure enough, an old man in his late 60s, maybe even early 70s, was passed out on the bed at the end of the RV. You sleep in here together? Laughed Lumiere. I sleep on the couch, replied Cranford bluntly. He doesn't like sleeping on his hearing aids, so he takes them out when he goes to sleep, so it's fucking hard to wake the old cunt sometimes. Cuthbert walked up to the two and added to the conversation. Well, we need this sorted today. What are we doing? Don't worry, I've got a method, said the burly, huge Cranford, and walked up to the bed and grabbed the scrawny old man by the armpits and started to shake him violently, screaming, Wake up, cunt, into his ears repeatedly. Cuthbert was worried he might break old man Davo's bones or something with the violent shaking. A method, huh? Laughed Lumiere. Cranford then carried the old man by the armpits and dropped him into a chair. Only then did the old man make any kind of reaction apart from sleeping and muttered, Jesus fucking Christ. Cranford, lay off the shard. It makes you fucking crazy, mate. Cranford stared at Davo. Yeah, Yeena, you're right. Sorry, Davo, muttered Cranford. The old man started to open his eyes and startled back in shock at seeing Lumiere and Cuthbert. Fuck, are these cunts, Cranford? Shrieked Davo. They're in the RV. Cranford, never let anyone in the RV. Fuck, Davo yelled. Cranford muttered something back, his voice quite and small. This fucking demon cunt scared me. He moaned, gesturing towards Lumiere. Cuthbert quickly interjected. We're here from Wildcat. Remember, Wendy? We need product, mate, so just show it and we'll be out of your hair. All right, mate, I'm all for good business, replied Davo, and walked towards an esky and pulled out a kilo brick of brown MDMA and threw it to Cuthbert. That's one $15,000, son. Right, payment? Stammered Cuthbert, realizing he'd overlooked this detail. Cuthbert was broke, he was fucked. He tapped his pockets. Got no cash, he said. Lumiere looked at Cuthbert, puzzled, and stepped in. You take band transfers? Lumiere asked Davo. No worries, Davo replied. I got you, mate, said Lumiere assuringly to Cuthbert. Cuthbert let out a sigh of relief. Thank you, mate. Don't worry, we'll get it back in a second, he said, quickly clutching the kilo of MDMA. Lumiere pulled out his phone and got Davo's details, then sent him the money. Lovely, said Davo. Sorry about Cranford, mate, he said, gesturing towards Lumiere's clothes, seemingly unfazed by his immortality. Lad just needs some sleep. Lumiere and Cuthbert were exiting the RV as the old man yelled out, Tell old car she's a bloody gem. Will do, laughed Lumiere. All right, bye, said Cuthbert, and the two walked to the shitbox and drove to Lumiere's apartment and invited Marcus over. Marcus arrived dressed, I'm black Arterix jacket, black pants, and Salomon shoes with his huge rat tail freshly tied. He made the initial blown-out remarks to the opulence of Lumiere's apartment. Fucking damn, Cuthbert! How's this? Gesturing to Lumiere. Scary motherfucker. Lumiere grinned a large toothy grin to Marcus with his needle teeth, and Marcus laughed nervously and said, Well, you got it, he asked. Yeah, mate, here, said Cuthbert, and handed him a half-ounce of pure brown MDMA. Marcus looked at the bag in awe. Whoa, cuzzy, this looks fucking cracker! What the fuck? This is crazy! He paused. Can I try some? Yay, fine, just take some and go. Come on. I need money, bud, said Cuthbert. I'll try some too. The three of them then each had a line of the MD. Fucking wow, said Cuthbert in awe. Nice, said Lumiere. Eatswa, muttered Marcus as he packed the half-ounce of MD into his bag and continuing to mutter, Fucking yeah, cunt eatswa, my bag eats, lad, nonsennically, and left Lumiere's apartment without saying goodbye. He'll be fine, said Cuthbert. Tough kid. Part 6. Didi Moncler. Didi Moncler is an AI, or so we think. An AI. Cuthbert finds through an old Secret Service connection, Winston. Winston worked for ASIO. He always wore a sharp black suit and had the typical build and demeanor of your typical Secret Service grunt and built like a racehorse. For no reason, really. He always carried a huge desert eagle either on his hip or down his pants. One day, shortly after the killing of the hippies, Winston called Cuthbert to catch up on old business, but also to show him a new app he had downloaded off the dark web. It was called Didi Moncler. Check it out, said Winston. What is this? Said Cuthbert. Well, Winston paused, as though he had no idea how to explain what Didi Moncler was without possibly giving the wrong signal to Cuthbert. Don't get too excited, but it's just straight up murder for hire. Murder for hire? Asked Cuthbert blankly, staring at the D logo on Winston's phone. Yeah, you just log in, navigate through the interface a bit, and bang! You'll end up finding an AI within the game. Talk to it, and it'll give you contracts. Whether you carry them out or not is up to you. Cool, replied Cuthbert with glee, a devilish grin appearing on his face. We don't know who made it or why or how, but this shit goes deep. And the contracts, I've got to tell you, Cuthbert, I've been enjoying this app, this Didi Moncler. Every contract I get, I feel justified. It's perfect. All pedos and losers who deserve it anyway, and corrupt politicians are freaks of nature, and I get to take them out for profit. And besides, the only reason I know about it in the first place is because Ashio put me onto it to find out more information about the mysterious killings of Didi Moncler. I'm doing a service. Indeed you are, replied Cuthbert. So you reckon you can hook us up to this app then? How do I get it? The actual download for the app for the game is buried deep in the dark web, pretty much designed so only hackers or people with a roadmap can find it. Here, give your phone. Winston snatched Cuthbert's phone from his hand and began downloading all the things you need to navigate the dark web onto Cuthbert's phone. After a few minutes, Winston stopped typing away and said, Here, this should do it. Winston passed the phone back. Cuthbert looked at it. He saw the D logo on the app button. This it? Cuthbert asked. Yeah, click it, said Winston. Cuthbert pressed the button and his phone began a load screen with the letters D and M in front. And then the screen turned into what looked like a run-of-the-mill MMORPG like Adventure Quest or Dragon Fable. Cuthbert was confused. Winston, what is this? This is just a kid's game. Just start playing, trust me. Once you get to level 13, you can start interacting with the Didi Moncler AI. It only takes a day to get there. Ready for the next date? What level are you? Laughed Cuthbert. 53, said Winston bluntly. Damn, said Cuthbert. I got some catching up to do. Cuthbert started playing the game. Winston, I can already see other people on the server. I thought you said no one knew about this thing. 3167 and counting, proclaimed Winston. That's how many users there are worldwide, and from what we've gathered, it's only been around about a year. And they're all killing people too? Asked Cuthbert in a soft tone. No, from what we've gathered, only a very small percentage of the user base is actively seeking contracts from Didi Moncler. Around 2 cents, said Winston. So the rest are just playing some shitty game off the dark web? None the wiser? Damn pharaoh, said Cuthbert. Well, I'd better grind up to level 13 then. Oh, by the way, Winston, I made a new friend. Care to guess who it is? Winston stared at Cuthbert. Who? He grunted, annoyed. Someone of an unkillable nature? Cuthbert looked at Winston and smirked. I've been kicking it with the elusive Paul. He then laughed somewhat maniacally. Ah, yes, I see. Paul the immortal, drug lord kingpin. I see. Well, damn, how'd you manage that? Asked Winston. I saved him from being shackled underground by a low-level gang, is what I did. Tracking chip? Asked Winston. Tracking chip, replied Cuthbert. Nice one, mate. We've been trying to figure out that cunt for fucking forever. Yeah, well, so we're the gangs. I think he's just lonely, to be honest. Cuthbert paused. He wasn't sure whether to tell Lumiere's real name to Winston or not. He decided, fuck it. And you know Paul's not his real name either? What is it? Asked Winston. Lumiere, said Cuthbert. Well, there you go. Winston began packing up his things into his suitcase. Keep an eye on that guy. He said, as far as the world is concerned, he's the only real immortal around. Maybe do some digging. See if you can't uncover any secrets. And in the meantime, get your first contract from Didi Moncler. I'm eager to hear of how it goes. For sure, said Cuthbert. All right, I'm off, said Winston and left the cafe they'd met in. Didi Moncler A. Cuthbert thought to himself, I gotta show this to Paul. Part 7. Kimmy, Pagan, and Marcus. Kimmy awoke and did the first thing he always did seconds after waking up. He rolled himself a satisfying wake-up cigarette to start the day. He grabbed his big Ziploc bag of chop, papers, and filters from the side of his bed, rolled the dart, and sparked it. Kimmy laid in bed in silence for the duration of the cigarette. Once he had butted the ciggy, he checked his phone, usual social media, a message from Marcus, a message from his mom, and a notification from Didi Moncler. Kimmy groaned. It was midday. He had overslept. Not that he had anything to do, really, but he was wrecked from too much sleep. Kimmy opened the message from Marcus. Yo, man, I reckon I'm hitting Club Perk tonight if you want to join. Kimmy did want to join. Nowadays, hitting Club Perk was one of the only things that brought him any joy, since he found Didi Moncler at least. So far, Kimmy had killed 5 people for Didi Moncler and reaped the rewards. Before finding the app, Kimmy had hardly even been in a fistfight, let alone killed anybody. He kept reminding himself that the kills were justified, and generally this seemed to work. Kimmy was poor, and Didi Moncler was real money, not living off the dole. Every target had a different reward, but the least amount Kimmy had gotten for just one kill was $5,000. And when you get told you're wiping out the scum of the earth for a profit, it makes the pill of taking a life easier to swallow. The most Kimmy had received from Didi Moncler was $25,000 for finding and killing a rogue ACO operative. He had been living off that kill for the last couple of months. Things were pretty cruisy. But slowly but surely, he knew he was going to have to do another job to keep up with his lifestyle. Kimmy so far, and he went over this in his mind over and over, had killed 1 ACO agent, a pedophile ringleader, a cult leader, and 2 corrupt police officers. Kimmy was good at this. He hadn't even gotten close to getting caught yet. Later that night, Kimmy went to meet Marcus at the line out front of Club Perk. What's good, Mikey? Said Marcus in just a smiley, goofy, lovable tone than ever. What's crackin', bruz? Replied Kimmy. It was a busy night. 4 of all these people, and no MD. I am gutted cunt, said Marcus. Oh, it's dry right now, is it? Asked Kimmy. Dry as a nun's cunt, mate. But my guy might be able to sort us tonight. Yes, sweet. At that moment, Kimmy noticed a girl staring at him from the front of the line. She was beautiful, with blue hair tied into 2 buns on either side of her head with bangs. She had had short shorts and an oversized sweater on with a bum bag and Nike TNs. "Hey man," said Marcus, "she is checking you out." "Yes," said Kimmy, "and she is fit." Both Kimmy and Marcus started laughing maniacally together for a moment and then stopped. The girl smiled at Kimmy as she entered the venue. "Fuck, I think I'm in there," said Kimmy to Marcus. "I think you might be right, bud," said Marcus. Kimmy and Marcus got into the club. Kimmy went and ordered a rum and coke and immediately started searching for the girl. Kimmy walked around the nightclub for a while, but he couldn't find her and gave up. The girl walked up to Marcus later on in the night. "Hi, I'm Pagan," said the girl to Marcus. Marcus turned to Pagan. "Got any ket? Heard you're the guy I'm looking for," she said with a sly smile on her face. "Yeah, I got you," said Marcus, swiftly reaching into his bum bag for a bag of ketamine. $50, he said. "Nice cheers," replied Pagan as she reached into her bag for a $50 note. Kimmy was standing next to Marcus, desperately searching for something to say. He remembered he had a small bag of cocaine in his bum bag. "Hey!" Kimmy exclaimed. "Want to get on some Calvin Kleins?" Pagan turned to Kimmy and recognized him from the line. "Calvin Kleins?" she asked, perplexed. "You know, Calvin Klein lines. Coke and ket." Kimmy started singing, "Calvin Klein lines. I do it all the time. It is in my dax. It is in my lines. Calvin Klein lines." There was a pause. Pagan's smile widened. She perked up. "Okay, let's do it," she said, sounding excited. Kimmy's heart skipped a beat. He was staring at her like a zoo animal. Was this the girl of his dreams? The two of them went into the unisex toilets and went into a stall. Marcus wanted to come, but he could tell Kimmy wanted to be alone with Pagan and simply said, "Have fun, kids," and took up his position on the dance floor. Kimmy got out his phone and started to chop up his bag of coke on top of it with his bank card. Pagan watched intently and asked, "So you come here often?" Placing her hand on his back, rubbing it as Kimmy chopped up the coke. "Yay, pretty often," Kimmy replied, concentrating as to not spill the coke. Once it was all chopped up, he said, "All right, now sprinkle on the K." "All right," said Pagan, and got the bag out and carefully poured it over each line. Kimmy rolled up a $50 note perfectly so it wouldn't unwrap. He had done this many times before. "All right," he said, "ladies first," and he passed the note to Pagan. Pagan smiled, took it, and railed the line. Kimmy was impressed as to how well she took it. "Woo!" went Pagan as she reeled from the line. "Nice," said Kimmy, and took the note and railed his line. Pagan started to feel up Kimmy's legs and groin. "I like you," she said. "There's something about you." Kimmy blushed and started getting hard from Pagan's hand. "Oh yeah," he said with a nervous laugh. "I like you too," he said. The two started making out with a passion, throwing themselves at each other in the bathroom stall. "This is nice," said Kimmy. "Yeah," replied Pagan. "It is. Come on, let's go find your friend," she said, and grabbed Kimmy's hand and led him back to the club. Kimmy was ecstatic. They found Marcus and started to dance. The key was kicking in, and they all seemed to move in sync, every movement harmonizing with one another. Kimmy and Pagan didn't stay at Club Perg for much longer. They bought a few drinks, had them, and Kimmy then asked, "Want to come back to mine?" To Pagan. "I'd love to," she replied. "All right, Marcus, bruz, we're heading off," said Kimmy to Marcus. "Easy, brother," replied Marcus. "Have fun, kids," he exclaimed as they left the club. Kimmy and Pagan arrived back to Kimmy's apartment and started tearing each other's clothes off, making out and feeling each other up. They were both naked. Kimmy picked up Pagan, threw her onto the bed, and they proceeded to have sex, and then fell asleep in each other's arms, both of them on the calm-a-down from the Calvin Klein lines. Kimmy woke up the next morning to Pagan's head nuzzled into his chest, sleeping soundly. He couldn't remember the last time he felt this happy. Part 8. Cuthbert's first contract. Cuthbert had been playing Didi Moncler for the last few days since he had been shown it by Winston. "For fuck's sake," he grunted to himself as he mindlessly finished quests and gained experience to reach level 13. So far, he had reached level 7, and he was getting impatient. He decided to take a break and walk to Lumiere's apartment to show him the app. Cuthbert arrived at Lumiere's apartment. He buzzed the doorbell. Lumiere answered. "Come up," he said through the speakerphone. Cuthbert entered the foyer and went into the elevator pressing 11. Lumiere lived at 1127. a detail he had told Cuthbert earlier. Cuthbert walked down and knocked at his apartment 3 times. Lumiere answered the door. "Hey mate, how are ya?" Cuthbert looked around Lumiere's apartment in awe. "What the fuck is this?" he asked in astonishment. The place was immaculately clean like a show apartment. The marble was glimmering, and he had great big art pieces spread across the wall. "This is crazy," Cuthbert said, exasperated. "Yeah, it's all right," said, "So what did you want?" "Mate, honestly, I'm stuck on this fucking game," replied Cuthbert. "A game?" asked Lumiere. "You got more games?" Lumiere seemed excited at the prospect, and Cuthbert remembered he told him he had never really played video games until he'd been to his house recently. "Yeah, mate, yeah. But this is like to try and get some work, you know." "What you mean work?" replied Lumiere. "My buddy showed me this app. Apparently once you get to level 13, it'll start showing you, like contracts for like work, you know? Would you like me to continue with the next 10 paragraphs?" "What kind of work?" asked Lumiere, confused. "Well, you know, just taking out a few scumbags for cash, something like that," he said, trailing off. "Taking them out? I don't like killing Cuthbert." Lumiere paused. "I've got some rare form of amnesia. I think I can't remember anything outside of a 5-year time frame ever, but I remember the face of every human I've killed. It's fucked. Don't you worry about being haunted?" he asked genuinely, his white eyes gleaming towards Cuthbert. Cuthbert scoffed. He didn't want to admit his undeniable bloodlust to Lumiere with his calm, peaceful demeanor. He stammered, "Well, yeah, sure. But the people on this app, Limo, they fucking deserve it, mate. I swear, it's how it's designed. We'll be doing the world a favor." "Fuck's sake," exclaimed Lumiere. "Well, let me see it. What's it called? I just want to play more video games now anyway." Cuthbert laughed. "All right, here it is." Cuthbert showed Lumiere his phone. "Didi Moncler?" said Lumiere in a perplexed tone. "Where the fuck have I heard that before?" "I don't know, mate," replied Cuthbert. "I mean, both words are brands already, right?" "Yeah, right," said Lumiere. "I don't know, might just be out of my purview." Lumiere laughed and smacked his head. "You know amnesia." He said, yeah, right. Replied, "Ready for the next..." "You know, I have no idea how I got into this business," said Lumiere. "Cunts just call me up for help when they're in trouble and I feel bad not helping. And I mean, I'm treated like the boss by everyone in the syndicate, which is nice. But fuck, mate, I don't know." Lumiere trailed off. "But hey, pays for this." Lumiere laughed as he gestured towards the marble peeing cherub fountain in the center of the room. He laughed and then sighed heavily. "All right, mate, let's see this game," he said and grabbed Cuthbert's phone. Lumiere started to plod along the game intently, immediately enthralled by a simple flash game. He chuckled to himself. "This is great," he said as he grinded through defeating poorly animated monsters with Cuthbert's avatar. Cuthbert wasn't focused on Lumiere's gameplay, but rather still taking in the opulence of Lumiere's apartment. Yeah, good mate. I'm glad you like it, gets those levels up." He paused to look at a large painting on the wall. "Jesus, mate, I don't know a lot about art, right? But that's by Basquiat, right? Is that a fucking original, mate?" "Oh, yeah. Yay, must be only originals in here, bud," said Lumiere, trailing off enthralled in the game. "I don't remember getting half the shit in here, but I know it's all legit, hey. That's gotta be worth fucking Jesus. I don't even fucking know cunt fuck me, okay, good on ya," stammered Cuthbert. 10 minutes passed in silence, with Lumiere playing Didi Moncler on Cuthbert's phone, and Cuthbert rolling himself a joint and kicking back to let Lumiere get through it. "Up 2 levels, baby!" excitedly remarked Lumiere. Hours of silence passed, and Cuthbert had smoked himself into a stupor on Lumiere's couch, and eventually, "Got it, you dog, yes!" shouted Lumiere in triumph as the level counter rose to 13. Cuthbert lurched forward and came to his senses. "Level 13? Yes, cunt! Good on ya! Now we need to find the AI embedded into the app," he said with a serious tone. "What, you mean this?" Lumiere pointed to an icon that had popped up on the screen, simply with the DM logo that read, "Unlocked." Yay, must be," replied Cuthbert. Lumiere pressed the icon and the phone screen went black for 10 seconds, only to completely reboot the phone, that had started to open a new slicker designed Didi Moncler app upon opening. It was set up like a simple AI assistant app, but all black and looked as if using the phone's internal coding. This is it, barked Cuthbert excitedly. Text appeared on the screen. Welcome to Didi Moncler, Cuthbert. It knows your name, laughed Lumiere. Yeah, right, said Cuthbert. The next slide popped up. It read, before we proceed, please choose from the following. 3 buttons appeared on the screen. The top read Justice on a green button, the middle read Mercy in a yellow button, and the bottom read Power on a red button at the bottom of the screen. In fine print was an asterisk that read, please note that you cannot change your path once selected. Choose wisely. What is this, a questionnaire? Muttered Cuthbert, annoyed. Must decide what jobs you get, said Lumiere, waiting for Cuthbert's decision. Well, I guess, justice? Right? Be a good bloke, hey? Cuthbert nervously pressed the justice button. Why didn't Winston warn me of this shit? He muttered, annoyed. Now you got it, replied Lumiere. Suits ya. The next slide appeared. You have chosen justice. The screen read, and the screen went back to the main menu now, with a deep green border around the black screen and a loading icon in the center. Here we go, said Lumiere with anticipation. 3 bubbles appeared on the screen, each with a different name and a bounty next to the name. The highest was at the top, with $10,000 marked. Next to the name Dimitri Masher, text began typing onto the screen as the app spoke in a standard AI woman's voice. The following contracts have been found in your area tailored for you, Cuthbert. The AI chirped. Creepy, huh? Said Lumiere. All right, stated Cuthbert. We're here to make money, right? Cuthbert pressed the bubble, naming the unknown Dimitri Masher for 10 grand. The screen went black again and loaded a screen showing the man's face like he was on a baseball card, with all relevant info stated underneath his picture. And in the top right corner was a compass icon with the word tracker flashing next to the icon. Piece of piss! We're on to it! Fuck yay! Laughed Cuthbert with glee. Lumiere was beginning to become more serious as the prospect of murder for hire became reality in front of his eyes, and winced a little, remembering the dying faces of those he believed to have killed in a distant past. So who is this creep? Said Cuthbert, glaring at the picture of a stern-looking Eastern European-looking man with a very short, bowl-cut and unkempt stubble and terrible skin. The phone began to talk. You have chosen Dimitri Masher. Your reward is set at $10,000, the AI voice stated. The bounty like a mother surprising her child with a dog on his birthday, and quickly fell into a serious monotone again. Dimitri is a rampant child predator. Perfect, stated Cuthbert as the AI spoke. Lumiere looked concerned, but also somewhat relieved. The AI continued. He has never been caught for his crimes and must be met with retribution. Dimitri is a producer and pornographic actor. In his illicit videos, he has produced with over 12 children and counting. Cuthbert beamed a large, sickly grin. You're fucking dead, mate, he said calmly. Huh, remarked Lumiere. Simples, he said, approving of this man's demise. The AI continued. Dimitri lives alone 17 kilometers from your location. Eliminate the target within the set time limit, or your bid will be forfeit and you may be flagged as a non-user. A timer appeared at the top of the screen, counting down from 8 hours, and a message in fine print with an asterisk at the bottom of the screen, which read, no witnesses. This is hectic, remarked Cuthbert. You know I haven't taken a life since my 20s when I was an ASIO, he stated. This scum cunt better not put up a fight. He laughed, but also meant what he was saying. Lumiere stood up and opened one of the closets on the wall, revealing a rack of assorted pistols. He grabbed a 35mm Ruger and grabbed a silencer from the drawer and screwed it on and threw the gun over to Cuthbert, along with a full clip. Here, take this. Don't want to get caught on your first job. He winked. Jesus, you got a lot of fucking pistols for a guy that doesn't like killing people, mate, remarked Cuthbert. Well, you know, they're good for proving a point, I guess. Kept getting bigger ones. I guess I've made a collection. Lumiere laughed nonchalantly. Keep it. It's yours, he said. Cheers, mate, replied Cuthbert. I was ready to go grab the machete under my bed. He laughed. The least this creep deserves, but you're right. Can't get myself dirty now, can I? He said as he brandished the pistol and slid the clip inside. Lumiere sighed. Well, clock's ticking, mate. The phone began talking again. We have a live tracker on Dimitri's cellular device. Please feel free to use our tracker to locate the target. The tracker icon began bobbing up and down. Cuthbert pressed it, and a map with a marked location and directional instructions appeared on the screen. "Damn, this guy's in a bougie area," said Cuthbert. "You gotta have millions at least to live round there. This is gonna be red fucking hot." Lumiere sighed again and put his hand on Cuthbert's shoulder. "You got this, mate. In and out." And he plonked himself onto his recliner and turned on the TV showing the news, which happened to be showing the news reporting a story about the unexplained spike in homicides and possible causes in the last few weeks. "Get out of here," said Lumiere in a reluctantly supportive tone. Cuthbert slid the gun down his pants and walked to Lumiere's front door. "All right, then," he said. "Cheers for the help, by the way." "Anytime," replied Lumiere and tuned into the television. Cuthbert went down the elevator, buzzing with excitement, far too ready to take a man's life. He walked out the building, got in his rusty pulsar, and began to drive toward the marker on the Didi Moncler app. Cuthbert began to close in onto the marker on his phone screen. The pulsar was moving past $100 million houses and luxury sports cars, and looked out of place, which put him on edge. But he didn't let it concern him. He parked his car 300 meters from the location and put on a pair of disposable plastic gloves. He still remembered how to get away with murder after killing for secret agencies decades ago. Yet, he was still coursing with adrenaline, anticipating the kill. He scoped out which house the target was in, comparing the marker on his phone to his surroundings. The house was huge, an estate with a gate and driveway. He scaled the ornate steel fence and made his way around to the back of the house. Dimitri Masher was 40 meters away. The back door was unlocked, and he could hear smooth jazz, the sort you'd hear in an elevator, playing through speakers in the house. Perfect, Cuthbert thought to himself, as he quietly opened the back door, clutching the silenced Ruger to his chest. The lights were turned off in the main room, apart from some dim lamps. Cuthbert stalked through the house, hugging the walls to avoid the possibility of being seen. A wave of inexplicable calm washed over him as he stalked down the hallway, and he saw Dimitri coming out of the bathroom and walking into another room, whistling along to the smooth jazz, his back turned towards Cuthbert, narrowly missing him in his gaze. He was a tall, frail-looking, lanky man. Cuthbert opened his phone and compared his silhouette to the photo. There's that cut. He realized he'd found his target with the shortness of the bowl cut on the back of his head. Cuthbert stood by the door of the room Dimitri was in and listened to his shitty whistling, his bloodlust heightening as he thought about the videos this man made for money. He took a deep breath and entered the room quietly, remaining unnoticed by Dimitri, who was sitting at a desk working on a laptop. He tiptoed to around 4 meters from the target and aimed the Ruger at the back of his temple. At that moment, Dimitri turned around in his office chair to get up and jumped back into his seat, falling backwards and clambering backwards on the ground and shrieking upon seeing a random man aiming a pistol at his head. "What? What? What? Who are you? What you want?" Dimitri Masher was shielding his face with his hands desperately pleading for his life. "Please do not kill me. I beg of you." He stammered, struggling to talk, swallowing his breath and hyperventilating. "Please! I am just babysitter! I have done nothing! I don't want to die! Please!" He screamed as he pissed his pants and backed towards the wall on his knees. Cuthbert chuckled. "Isn't this great?" he muttered and cocked his pistol. "Time to die. Sick fuck!" Dimitri screamed, "Oh, fuck!" His scream got cut off by Cuthbert's bullets passing through his skull, splattering his brains onto the wall behind him. Cuthbert laughed a sadistic laugh and sighed a heavy, satisfied sigh which got cut off by Didi Moncler talking through his phone in his pocket, blaring 2 words, "No witnesses." "The fuck?" muttered Cuthbert and glanced around the room. At that moment, a small child in his PJs stumbled into the doorway, rubbing his eyes, and only just noticing his babysitter's limp corpse slumped. Against the wall, the child was stunned and quickly began bawling his eyes out, calling for his mother. "No witnesses." Cuthbert's phone repeated, "Oh God! Oh God! Ooh, fuck! How does it know for fuck's sake? Oh, fucking Jesus Christ, cunt!" Cuthbert tentatively walked towards the bawling child, who stopped crying as Cuthbert loomed in front of him and stared up into his hand, holding a shaking pistol to his head. The boy went to ask a question in shaky breaths, snot pouring out his nose. Fuck, fuck! Cuthbert stammered to himself. The boy went to speak. Wah wah! Cuthbert recocked the pistol and said in a sincere tone, regretting ever coming to make this fucking contract. I'm sorry, mate. He pulled the trigger and immediately looked away. He couldn't look at what he had done, but he heard the small body crumpled to the ground. Cuthbert opened the window and jumped out onto the terrace and noticed a car pulling into the driveway. Jesus fucking Christ! He stammered in a whisper to himself as he made his exit towards the ornate garden fence. As he began to scale it, he heard a blood-curdling scream of a woman sending a jolt of adrenaline up his spine as he sprinted to his car. Cuthbert got to his car and slammed his fists against the steering wheel, screaming a muffled scream and quickly starting the engine and beginning the drive home. I'm sorry, Mama, he said in spirit to the grieving screams he could still hear in his ear. Fuck, he whispered, really I am. As he drove a few kilometers out of the bougie suburb, he got a notification on his phone. He opened it, and it was Didi Moncler with a congratulatory mission accomplished message, with a confetti effect coming through the phone, and a message below the mission accomplished that read, $10,000 has just been transferred to your bank account. Good job, Cuthbert! A wave of calm followed by a wave of disgust by having the wave of calm flooded over. Cuthbert, he looked closer at the message on his phone and saw a tick checkbox that read, no witnesses. Cuthbert blew huge raspberries in exasperation as he powered down the highway, unaware of how fast he was. Overexerting his shitbox car, deciding to himself to keep the additional life, taking a secret to his grave. Lumiere couldn't know. He can't. He opened his bank app on his phone, and sure enough, $1,000 from Didi Moncler Corp had just been put into his account. He gained some composure and brought his car down to the speed limit. The last thing he needed was to get pulled over. Another wave of calm washed over him, and he stuffed the following wave of disgust deep into his chest and cleared his throat. Well, shit happens, he declared to nobody. Yep, shit, sewer happens. He trailed off to himself. He took on a stone-cold demeanor as he pulled into his driveway and tried not to fight the sick satisfaction of the 10 grand sitting in his bank account. He lay awake in his bed. He reopened Didi Moncler and looked at the notification and looked back at the ceiling. Mission accomplished, he muttered and quickly fell into a deep sleep.